Good morning, boys and girls. This week we have very little to do. I know you are putting the finishing touches on your first big essays, and I want to give you plenty of time to do that. I will suggest if you didn't do peer review last week, it's a very good thing to do. It will raise your grade and make your paper better, although you won't get credit for doing it now. But it'll raise your grade and make your paper better. I would suggest doing it if you didn't last week, or continuing to do it if you want to. The groups are still open and you're welcome to use those. Okay, but I'm going to take you through the three kinds of documentation that we need to do this week, and I'm going to make three little mini lectures and then a little mini lecture about the Works Cited page, and then I'll leave you to engage in the discussions and do the work on your own. So I'm going to talk first about the primary source. We mentioned this last week, but I'll remind you again, the primary source in this case is your story or stories that you're using from the anthology in your textbook. So I'm going to talk about how to cite those and show you the MLA formatting. If you're using APA formatting, the information in your handbook, the Little Seagull handbook, is current. If you're using MLA formatting, the MLA formatting in the handbook is not current, because this edition came out prior to the MLA getting all their new rules out. So in the module for this week, and also in the how-to module, I provided for you a supplement from the handbook publishers that has all the current MLA stuff in it. There are some changes, none of it's major, and so I'm going to take you through that. Again, I understand that you've been exposed to this and you practiced this extensively in English 1A or freshman composition or some other place. So I understand this is not new to you. I'm just hoping to help you review a little bit. So the first thing we're looking at, your story is an entry in an anthology in this case, because it comes from the anthology in your textbook. So it's going to be an entry in an anthology. So if you open that MLA supplement that's in this week's module, and I have it open here on the desk, I didn't print it because it's many pages long, but I'm starting with the table of contents at the very top of the thing, the MLA style, and I go down to work in an anthology. Number 9, it's on page 7. Okay, so this is my in-text citation. So I'm going to roll down to page 7. And I'm going to see at the bottom of page 7, number 9, work in an anthology. And that tells me that I must mention the writer's name somehow in my setup. You see a couple of examples there of the way that the name has been mentioned. If you don't mention the name in your setup, look at the first one. You see the name Cynthia Ozick is mentioned in the lead-in to the quote, so you don't have to mention it at the end. In the second example, the writer doesn't mention the author's name as the part of the setup, so you've got to mention that in parentheses at the end of the quote. In either case, the author's name will lead the reader to that entry in your Works Cited page. So that's how you set up a quote from your story, from your primary source, and you're going to use one story or three, so there may be one primary source or there may be three. All right. Then when I'm going to make my Works Cited entry, I'm going to go back up to the directory table of contents at the top of the page, and I see on page 2 list of works cited. And so I roll on down there and I see number 19, work in an anthology, on page 25. So I'm going to roll on down to page 25 as soon as my computer loads up here. And and there is on page 25. I don't know why today I keep looking at myself on the screen instead of looking at you guys on the camera. I don't know what's up with me this morning. Here's something important to notice. You are not listing the anthology, which would be your textbook, and we'll talk about that in the next video. You're listing the work in the anthology. So you're going to use model number 19, the author's last name, and here's where you need to pay a little bit of attention, because here's where the new MLA stuff gets kind of squirrely and crazy. The author's last name, comma, first name, period, then the name of the story in quotation marks, not in italics, but in quotation marks, with a period as you see it there. Then the title of the anthology, well, in this case your textbook is the anthology, Literature and the Writing Process is the name of the anthology, and that's going to be in italics. And then there's a comma. This is new in the 2016 edition. So the title of the textbook, then a comma, then the words edited by, and then you can just put Elizabeth McMahon, just one, and then the abbreviation et al. I'll remind you of that later on. So edited by Elizabeth McMahon, that's also different from the old MLA style. Then the name of the publisher, which you will find inside the title page. The publisher is Pearson. Okay. Just pick the first and then the year of publication, which is on the back side of the title page. And it is 2014. See down here at the bottom of the page, on the other page, down here, it says 2014. And then the pages on which your story appears. So, 110 through 115 or whatever the page numbers are, and then a period. So the writer's last name, comma, writer's first name, period, the title of the story in quotation marks, the title of the textbook in italics, comma, edited by Elizabeth McMahon, comma, publisher, the name of the publisher, which is Pearson, comma, year of publication, which is 2014. Is that what we said? Yeah, 2014, comma, and then the page numbers on which your story appears, period. So that's slightly different from the old MLA formatting style. You may be learning this part brand new because it's just come out over the summer, but that's the model. That's your primary source. That's your story. Okay? If you have one story, there will be one of these. If you have 3 stories, there will be 3 of these, but the format will be exactly the same. The details will just change. Okay? Now, if your eyeballs are glazing over already and you're wondering who the hell cares, I don't care that much about this stuff either. But I do care that my students develop the discipline and the courage to get it right. Because getting it right is what you need to do sometimes. And I'm not going to give you that sermon now, but get it right. Follow the model exactly. Don't have to make any judgment calls. Just follow the model exactly. And really all that the MLA has done in the new style is they've replaced some periods with commas. And some of the formatting is slightly different. Excuse me. Okay, so that's your primary source. That's your story. Okay, 1 or 3 stories. Okay, so I'm going to stop and move on to talking about secondary sources. Hang on.